All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're totally flipping the script on a financial rule that, let's be honest, most of us have blindly followed since we opened our very first savings account. We're going to look at this through a 30-year actuarial lens, crunching the market data, looking at economic shifts, and really digging into risk management. We are unpacking a massive philosophical shift in how we actually achieve long-term financial security. If you've ever felt that lingering anxiety about whether you're saving enough, or if your financial setup feels, well, a bit fragile, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get right into it. So, take this idea right here. It's not having wealth, it's having the power to produce wealth. Now, for decades, the financial industry has basically trained us to fixate on this magical target number, right? Hit that number, lock it away in a vault, and boom, you're supposedly safe. But when we actually analyze risk over a 30-year timeline, this quote just hits the nail on the head. It exposes a massive blind spot in all that conventional wisdom. It's challenging us to look past the illusion of a static bank balance and really focus our energy on human capital, our dynamic capabilities.
And this fundamentally illustrates the core dichotomy we're exploring today. It's the stark contrast between guarding a static pile of resources versus building a living, dynamic engine of creation. Having wealth is just static accumulation. It's literally a snapshot in time, and because it sits completely still, it is incredibly vulnerable to outside forces. On the flip side, the power to produce wealth is dynamic generation. It's active, it's got momentum, and because of that, it is highly resilient. We're essentially comparing a defensive posture, hiding behind the walls of the assets you've gathered, with a totally offensive posture, where you become the very engine of your own security.
Section 1. The Wealth Accumulation Illusion. Think of having wealth like a giant reservoir. You've spent years, decades even, pumping water into it, and now you're just sitting there, anxiously watching the water level. Now, to an actuary or a risk manager, a stationary state like this is a massive red flag. Why? Well, because stationary targets are just the easiest to hit. A finite reservoir has absolutely no way to replenish itself once you turn off that external pump. It just sits there, completely exposed to the elements.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question. Over a 30-year horizon, what happens when the dam cracks? What happens when a severe drought hits? Translating that to your finances, what happens when there's a huge medical emergency, a nasty bout of hyperinflation, or some massive structural shift in the global economy that just wipes out the value of your specific assets? If your only real defense is the static size of your wealth, a couple of unforeseen curveballs can drain that reservoir with terrifying speed.
Section 2. The Actuarial Risk Reality. See, a static nest egg is constantly under attack from these invisible, creeping forces of decay. First off, you've got constant erosion. I'm talking about inflation, that silent thief that mathematically guarantees your money's going to buy less tomorrow than it does today. Then there's market volatility and crashes. Actuaries know for a fact that tail risk events, those rare, absolutely devastating market drops, happen way more often than standard bell curves want to admit. Just imagine finally retiring on a Friday, feeling totally set, only for the market to completely tank by 30% the following Monday. Or what about unforeseen liabilities? A sudden lawsuit can come out of nowhere. And finally, there's just the cold, hard math of depleting a finite resource. When you rely solely on accumulated wealth, every single dollar you spend is a permanent deduction from your ultimate security. So here is the harsh, unavoidable actuarial truth. A static pile of wealth is a decaying asset. It is subject to financial entropy. Without some kind of regenerating source, any reservoir of wealth is inevitably going to dry up when you subject it to decades of external economic pressure. If you're just holding on to wealth, you aren't actually secure. You're basically on a countdown timer, just hoping your lifespan runs out before your money does. And honestly, that is not true financial freedom. That's just anxiety masked by a really nice spreadsheet.
Section 3. The Power of Production. Okay, let's pivot to the solution. If having wealth is a vulnerable reservoir, the power to produce wealth is a spring. Cultivating this internal, unassailable spring means actively developing your skills, your network, your adaptable intellect, and your business acumen so you can generate value no matter what the macroeconomic climate is doing. It's not about what you have, guys. It's about what you can do. A spring doesn't panic about evaporation or inflation because its very nature is to just keep flowing from deep underground, bringing fresh resources to the surface day in and day out.
When you put the two side by side, it's night and day. The reservoir is finite, and it completely relies on ideal, perfect external conditions to maintain its levels. But the spring is an infinite, regenerating engine. When market crashes come along and wipe out those reservoirs, the person who operates like a spring just rolls up their sleeves and goes back to work.
They leverage their internal capacity to spot new problems and create brand new solutions. Their wealth isn't locked away in some bank vault where it can be taxed or devalued. It's hardwired into their neural pathways and their raw capacity to execute.
And true financial invulnerability has some really distinct hallmarks. Production power is internally driven. You are the one in control of the output. It's also highly resilient to market cycles because a skilled producer can just pivot to whatever the market needs right now. It's incredibly adaptable. Think about it. Over 30 years, entire industries are going to rise and fall, right? But the person who fundamentally knows how to produce wealth will just shift their focus to the next frontier. And maybe the most crucial point, it cannot be easily diminished or taken away. Sure, you could lose your entire portfolio in a catastrophic crash, but nobody can confiscate your hard-earned ability to generate value.
Section 4, the ultimate risk mitigation.
At the end of the day, true security absolutely does not come from hoarding a static number in a bank account. Actuaries spend their entire careers trying to hedge against uncertainty using these insanely complex derivatives and insurance products. But for you and me, the greatest risk mitigation strategy ever invented is your own productive capacity. Cultivating the power to produce literally neutralizes inflation, it bypasses market crashes, and it essentially makes the sheer unpredictability of the next 30 years totally irrelevant. You don't need to predict the future if you possess the skills to build it.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this one provocative thought to chew on. Are you simply hoarding a decaying asset, or are you actively building an unstoppable engine to produce wealth? I highly encourage you to audit your own time and energy this week. Are you spending literally 100% of your effort just trying to guard that reservoir? Or are you actually dedicating time to deepening your well and becoming a spring? Because when it's all said and done, true wealth isn't what's sitting in your pocket, it's what you're capable of producing. Thanks for hanging out with me on this deep dive, and hey, keep building that engine.